The White House has just delivered an update that's shaking up the conversation around America's economy. While the headlines scream crisis and inflation, the administration says something very different is happening behind closed doors.
We do begin tonight with the scene playing out with President Trump and his cabinet, and Elon Musk called on first. It was the president's first cabinet meeting, the president inviting cameras in for more than an hour.
Down. Interest rates are probably down. They scatter, but they're probably down. Prescription drug prices are even to down.
But first, what's going through your mind as you watch snippets of this cabinet meeting? I mean, is this the norm at gatherings of high-level officials?
And they've got numbers to prove it. From price tags at the pump to money flowing in from overseas, something big is changing. Why is the White House suddenly so confident about the economy? Are Americans really feeling the relief they're talking about? What's behind all this tariff money, and who's actually paying for it? Is this the start of a real economic recovery, or just smoke and mirrors ahead of 2026? Let's break down what they're not telling you yet. Donald Trump held one of his trademark cabinet meetings on April 19th, and because subtlety isn't his thing, he invited the press to tag along. What followed was a mix of economic boasts, bold defense moves, and government efficiency flexes that felt more like a reality show finale than a routine policy briefing. Trump kicked things off with a humble brag about tariffs. According to him, the U.S. is now raking in a cool $2 billion every single day just from tariffs alone. He also threw in that Americans might have noticed some lighter energy bills lately, his way of saying, "You're welcome," as talks over trade deals continue. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick backed the economic optimism with vague promises of more tariff wins on the horizon. He even teased something called the Gold Card Initiative. No details, just the name, like a movie trailer with zero plot. Then came a geopolitical power move. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave the room a travel update from Panama. Though instead of vacation pics, he brought news of new agreements ensuring U.S. ships won't get hit with sky-high canal fees. This comes after Trump threatened to yank back control of the canal entirely, citing concerns over growing Chinese influence. Turns out those threats may have worked. A Hong Kong-based firm recently bailed on its stakes near the canal, selling them off to a U.S.-led group. So, mission accomplished, at least for now. Things took a sharp turn when Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard dropped a truth bomb. She revealed that electronic voting machines aren't exactly Fort Knox. Experts have long said they're hackable, and now there's official confirmation. Her office is pushing for a return to old-school paper ballots, and a new executive order backs that push. As if that weren't enough, Gabbard added that her team is combing through a mountain of secret files related to the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. Over 100 staffers are apparently working around the clock to make those records public, all in the name of transparency. From there, the meeting turned into a budget-slashing bonanza. EPA head Lee Zeldin revealed the agency had axed $22 billion in grants, a move Democrats are already calling shady and potentially illegal. Meanwhile, Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer said her department sent $4.4 billion in leftover COVID funds back to the Treasury. The reason? Too many checks went to people who were, quite literally, dead. 25,000 of them were listed as being over 115 years old. And just when you thought things couldn't get wilder, Elon Musk popped in wearing his Department of Government Efficiency Doge hat. He claimed the feds had shaved off $150 billion in wasteful spending. Critics are already side-eyeing that number, but Musk didn't blink. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem showed up to the cabinet meeting with stats she was clearly proud of. 2 months straight of record-low border crossings. She credited tougher security efforts, which, based on her tone, were working like a charm. But it wasn't all walls and fences. She added that the department's next move is to actually work with undocumented immigrants, helping them leave voluntarily with the chance to return the right way through legal channels. Farmers also got a shout-out, with Noem saying there's a plan to get them more legal migrant labor to fill in workforce gaps, because crops don't harvest themselves. Oh, and she confirmed something travelers might not love. Starting next month, you'll need a real ID to fly domestically, No real ID, no boarding pass. Over at Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came in hot with a health agenda that raised a few eyebrows. First up, fluoride. Yep, he's having the department reevaluate the stuff in our drinking water, even though the CDC is still firmly team fluoride for cavity protection. Then he threw out a big promise. He wants to figure out what's behind the spike in autism diagnoses by September 2025. That's a bold timeline considering most scientists are already shouting from the rooftops that vaccines aren't the culprit, but Kennedy's charging ahead anyway. Meanwhile, Education Secretary Linda McMahon had some serious words and actions for higher ed. She called out surging anti-Semitism on college campuses and then hit two major universities where it hurts, their wallets. Columbia is losing $400 million, and Harvard's getting slapped with an $8 billion funding cut. Why? It's all part of a push to hand control of education back to individual states and apparently hold schools accountable in the process. On April 10th, President Trump had a new idea brewing during his cabinet meeting. Why not get America's top law firms to work for free on trade negotiations? According to him, several big-name firms have already padded his pockets over the years with legal fees, so now he's thinking it's time they give back. He said he plans to tap into their prestige and hopes they'll lend a hand, especially since 4 firms already agreed to donate their legal expertise to the administration. He didn't name names during the meeting, but the details are out there. These firms are ponying up hundreds of millions of dollars in free legal work, mostly tied to causes that the administration supports, veterans being a major one. Now, here's where things get spicy. Trump has gone after a few of these same firms with executive orders, accusing them of playing dirty politics. Why? Some represented his political rivals, some took legal swings at his policies, and others had staff involved in investigations targeting him. His orders took aim at their access to government officials and buildings and even threatened to yank federal contracts from their clients. In the same cabinet meeting, Trump floated the idea that these firms could step in to help out his trade team. Meanwhile, just the day before, he'd hit a bunch of countries with steep reciprocal tariffs, and then just as quickly hit pause on most of them. China still gets the full treatment. Apparently, more than 75 countries reached out to the White House, eager to strike trade deals, and Trump seemed to think these law firms could help keep that momentum going. He's also kept up his feud with certain firms, accusing them of weaponizing the legal system, a charge they've denied. His executive orders have taken jabs at their internal diversity policies too, criticizing them as discriminatory against majority groups like white Americans. That line has earned him praise from some conservatives. One of the firms he went after, Paul Weiss, agreed last month to contribute $40 million worth of free legal work anyway. The others, Skadden Arps, Milbank, and Wilkie Farr, weren't targeted, but still offered up $100 million each in pro bono services. No word yet from those firms on whether they think trade negotiations fit within their original promises. Meanwhile, 3 others, Perkins Coie, Wilmer Hale, and Jenner and Block, have taken Trump to court over the executive orders. So far, judges have temporarily blocked key parts of the orders, saying they likely infringe on free speech and due process. And as the meeting wrapped, Trump mused aloud about whether he might need legal help from these same firms once he's out of office. The way things are going, he just might. President Trump also admitted on April 10th that, yeah, slapping tariffs on just about everything might cause some bumps in the road. But according to him, the temporary chaos will all be worth it, because what's coming next is, in his words, a beautiful thing. Speaking to reporters during this cabinet meeting, he said there'd be transition problems and some difficulty, but insisted the country is finally doing what it should have done years ago. The day before, Trump had pumped the brakes on his global tariff rollout, delaying most of it for 90 days. But he kept 2 key pieces in place: a blanket 10% tariff on nearly all imports and a massive 125% duty on Chinese goods. By the next morning, the White House clarified that China's penalty could actually go even higher, up to 145%, because why not? That update sent Wall Street into another tailspin. The Dow dropped 2.5%, the S&P slid nearly 3.5%, and the Nasdaq took the biggest hit, falling 4.3%. That made it 5 losing days out of the last 6 since Trump's big Liberation Day tariff announcement. Investors were clearly not feeling the beautiful part just yet. Still, Trump kept the heat on China. He told reporters he'd love to make a deal, but also accused Beijing of years of economic abuse, saying they've ripped us off more than anyone else. When asked about China cutting down on the number of American movies it plans to import, he brushed it off with a smirk, saying he's heard of worse. The administration now has until July 8th to negotiate one-on-one trade agreements with more than 75 countries that suddenly became very interested in cutting deals after the tariff hammer dropped. Looking back at the decision to pause most of the tariffs, Trump described it as a gut move. He said people were getting jittery, yippy, as he put it, and that over the past few days, he'd been mulling over the idea. It all came together in the early hours of the morning, and according to him, the revised plan wasn't crafted with lawyers, but straight from the heart. Sources close to the White House said the pause had been floating in Trump's mind since Sunday. After a conversation with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reportedly urged him to hold off and take advantage of the countries lining up to negotiate. But what exactly is the impact of Trump's decision on the U.S.? Inflation took a breather last month, even as President Trump kept firing off tariff threats like they were going out of style. Gas, plane tickets, and hotel rooms all got a bit cheaper. So for anyone who managed a road trip, it was a pretty decent time to travel. According to the Labor Department, consumer prices in March were up just 2.4% from the year before, down from February's 2.8%, marking the lowest inflation rate since last September. If you strip out the usual troublemakers, food and energy, core inflation also slowed down. Prices were up 2.8% compared to a year ago, a dip from 3.1% in February, and the slowest pace in nearly 4 years. Economists always zoom in on core prices because they're less of a drama queen and more of a long-term trend indicator. Still, no one's exactly popping champagne over this. Experts warned that this data is already outdated, basically the economic equivalent of a selfie taken last week. With Trump's tariffs, especially the monster ones still hanging over China, inflation is expected to make a comeback in 2 to 3 months and could stick around for the rest of the year like an unwanted guest. UBS Wealth Management's chief economist, Paul Donovan, said the tariff roller coaster was brutal. 1 minute it's off, next minute it's back on. And either way, it's landing squarely on the backs of U.S. consumers. As he put it, Americans are basically paying higher taxes, whether it says tariff or not. On a month-to-month basis, prices actually fell by 0.1% in March, the first dip in nearly 5 years. Core prices only inched up 0.1% from February. So yes, technically things got cheaper, for now. Bankrate's chief analyst Greg McBride wasn't buying the celebration, warning that this was just a rearview mirror moment. He said there's still plenty of economic uncertainty ahead, so don't expect the good times to last. Used car prices dropped 0.7%, and auto insurance prices fell by 0.8%. That sounds great, until you realize insurance is still up 7.5% over the past year, so it's more like slightly less painful. Travel costs took a dive too. Airline fares plunged 5.3% from February to March, and hotel rates fell 3.5%. Economists linked the drop to a big decline in international tourism. With Trump's aggressive trade rhetoric making headlines, foreign visitors apparently decided to vacation anywhere but here. Government stats showed international visits to the U.S. sank nearly 12% last month. Not everything got cheaper though. Groceries were up 0.5%, led by a ridiculous 5.9% jump in egg prices, pushing them to a record $6.23 a dozen. Clothing was up 0.4%, though it's been mostly flat over the year. Meanwhile, some U.S. companies have already started shifting manufacturing out of China, something that dates back to Trump's earlier trade wars. Still, China isn't exactly off the grid. It's still the third largest trading partner of the U.S., and moving supply chains elsewhere isn't cheap. That kind of shuffle usually brings more costs for consumers down the line. As for interest rates, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the central bank is playing the long game. They're holding the key rate at about 4.3% for now, waiting to see what Trump's economic whirlwind actually does. Trump, of course, wants the Fed to cut rates. He said as much on April 11th.